Are you listening? This ain't no quiet thing. We're screaming out our lungs. Hey, are you listening? Hey, are you there? Hey, are you listening? Or do you just not care?
All right, well, welcome to Hey, Are You Listening? This is a podcast exploring the past, present, and future of Christian music. My name is Joel. I'm here with my good friend Brandon, and we connected over mutual love of some particular artists, but also have pretty different tastes when it comes to things. And so we get to experience new stuff from each other while inviting some friends along for the ride sometimes. Brandon, how's it going today?
It's going really well. I was just finishing up a candy bar before we started recording, so it's always good.
We're getting into a habit of when I ask you that question, you're usually finishing up a snack and you mention it on the air.
You know, I feel like I've really wanted us to have a drink sponsor, but maybe like a snack sponsor is like better. To be honest, last night I was looking through my Instagram at a couple of different like energy drinks, and I was thinking to myself like, man, I wonder what they would do if I sent some like pitch to them saying like, hey, do you want to sponsor me? I've got NASCAR podcast as also Christian music podcast. And I was like, I wonder, well, who's the energy drink out there that matches like, man, that's who we are. NASCAR and Christian music. You're the one, but
I don't know. And also, I feel like that sponsorship would be pretty lost on me, considering I don't consume energy drinks.
you just have to pretend. We would add in a fake sip. So it's like, it's pretty refreshing.
I feel like this is a sponsorship that only benefits you. If anything, I feel like it should probably be Bojangles at this point.
Oh man, yeah. So we just pivot to a restaurant so we get drink and food.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. Makes sense to me for sure. All right, well, let's kind of get into where we're going. Today, let's kick off talking about what's in the news.
What's in the news? What's in the news?
So what's been going on in the world of Christian music? I feel like just from our conversations, what we've noticed is there's a lot of artists that haven't done anything in a long time that all of a sudden are releasing or announcing that they're releasing new music, which is kind of a fun thing. And so I've got a couple that I've been paying close attention to. One I've probably mentioned before. Actually, I don't know if I have on the podcast, but one of my favorite bands back from like high school is a band called PFR, Pray for Rain, and they're one of the like biggies back in the time. You had your DC Talks, you had your Jars of Clay, your Audio Adrenaline, Third Day, and PFR was probably like up there. In with those bands, but like for whatever reason they were never like the level of some of those bands. But for me at the time, they were it, and so my love for PFR far exceeded my love for all those other bands. And so they haven't done anything in years at this point, but they just finished tracking a brand new record called The Target and the Arrow, and I crowdfunded this thing and am so excited to hear it and get it in my hands. One of my all-time favorite bands, and so I'm really pumped. You ever listen to any PFR?
I'm going through and I don't recognize, but it looks like 2001 or so was kind of like when everything else since then has been live, like recordings or best of.
Yeah.
I saw they were on Squint. I feel like I need to go back and just do a deep dive on what was going on at Squint during this time.
Yeah, so weirdly enough, their last record, Disappear, came out on Squint. So they broke up and then got back together and put out Disappear. And Steve Taylor at Squint was like, I think Mark Nash, their drummer, was like the A&R guy at Squint. So I don't know if that's kind of like a backdoor deal or whatever, but apparently as the story goes, he told Steve Taylor, hey, PFR, we're working on this new record that we'd like to do. And Steve Taylor was like, well, duh, Squint's going to put it out. And so that's what ended up happening. But apparently like a week after the album came out, Squint folded as a label. And so the record just kind of got lost in the midst of all that stuff happening, which is kind of a bummer. So they actually just did a crowdfunding, a Kickstarter to re-release that record, remaster it, and put it out on vinyl for the first time, because I think it's been missing from streaming services and like really hard to get on CD because they only made a few of them. And so it's called Disappear, but it literally disappeared. So yeah. And then they haven't done anything since then, maybe because of what happened through all that. But it's fun that they've got something new coming out, for sure. So I'm pumped about that one. I know you've got one too, right?
Yeah, Family Force 5. They have on their social media, there's been a lot of teases lately. So people don't really know if it's... first people were like, oh, it's new music. But someone else was like, maybe it's an anniversary tour of some of their stuff. And but it looks really cool because it looks like it's all of the original people getting back together. And I feel like Family Force 5 was definitely a band that, I know that like a lot of people really enjoyed, like when Crouton took over. I feel if you don't know the band, you start hearing stuff like Solo and Crouton, and you're like, are you just making up names? But I feel like with a lot of bands, it's hard to capture the magic of the original lineup. And so I think that as a Family Force 5 fan, if that's the case, it's really cool to see, even if it's just coming back and celebrating some of the older stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty cool seeing all that stuff kind of get teased.
So are we unclear still as to what the thing is that's being teased, or do we have clarity about it?
No, it's still, it's kind of just, from what I've seen, it's just kind of people saying, oh, is it going to be a reunion thing or whatever? I think for me, that's what I'm kind of assuming, because I think two people make this mistake of expecting the moon or something. Right. And, I remember years ago whenever, people wanted DC Talk to return, and then they released that, what was the song? Love Feels Like on Toby Mac's album. And people were like, oh, this is terrible. And I'm like, you guys don't understand that if they came out today, that's what they would sound like. They're not going to release like 90s, sounding or whatever. And, so yeah, for me, it'd be cool just to see them like live again. Cause I feel like their live shows, what was so cool was there's a lot of production with like Family Force 5 and stuff going on. And so it was really cool to see them in like a, arena or whatever. But also just one of my favorite shows was they did an acoustic show. And it was just so cool because it was all of their antics and it was crazy and all this stuff, but it was still just such a good like show. And I feel like at their shows, you felt like you were a part of them, whether it was 1,000 people or whether it was 10,000 people. Right. You felt like you were in the, like a part of the show and you were seen by them. So
yeah, well, I'm definitely interested. I've been following this on social media and seeing a lot about it, but especially I feel like with my way less knowledge about the band than you have, I've just kind of been like, I'm not sure what's going on right now. Like, I don't know what's happening.
As a fan of the band, I don't know what's going on.
Okay, good. I'm glad I'm not the only one that feels that way. One more for me that's been kind of cool. One of my probably even earlier than my love for PFR. There's a guy named Wes King who hasn't put out any music for like the last 25 years. And he's kind of in that like singer-songwriter CCM, like in the earlier days of CCM, in your like Michael W. Smith, Amy Grant, like Stephen Curtis Chapman time frame guy who's putting out records. And I always felt like for Wes King, his albums were a little more like thoughtful than some of the others. Plus, he's one of the best guitar players that I have ever heard, and so it's actually like a lot of his music that made me want to play guitar to begin with. I really love some of his stuff. A great singer, a great songwriter, and he's He is working on his first record in 25 years. And he's walked through a lot. A cancer diagnosis that's kind of like held him back from making music for the last who knows how long. But it's cool to see. I follow him on social media, and it's cool to see like pieces of this kind of come back together. And so it'll be really interesting to see what happens with that. So cool. Well, they got some fun stuff coming out, so that's going to be really fun to dig into. Brandon, what have you been listening to lately?
Oh man, I was gonna say this week. Whenever this came out recently, it was a really cool day. So Colony House, they released their 77 Part 2, and it's something that I feel like with their music, you have to give it a couple of listens to. So it's not something you listen to and you're like, this is bad or good. But I enjoyed it with my first like listen through. I enjoyed it. I'm really interested to see how like other people like look at it, because like I said, their first part 1 was pretty like mixed, with some people saying like, oh, this is a step back, and other people being like, man, this is a good album. So I'm interested to see. And then Gable Price and Friends, they came out with a song Too Good, and it is really, really good. It's too good.
Too good?
It's really good though. It's kind of about like the commercialization of the like church and all. So I feel like it is it's a really good song, and when you start like listening to the lyrics, it's a very like convicting song as well.
Yeah.
And I think right now, like, those are two bands that for anyone who says like, man, there's no good music out nowadays, I feel like those are two bands that I would direct people to say, no, these people are releasing stuff that is, really, really good. So
that's cool. I'm glad you got two things from two of your favorite artists. I've been wanting to hear your take on the Colony House thing, so I knew it was coming, and I'm like, can't wait to hear what Brandon thinks about it. So, yeah, that's cool. For me, a band that I got into just like a year and a half ago, I saw them at the last Furnace Fest that I went to and listened to them a little bit leading up to it, is a band called Idle Threat. And they're a Tooth and Nail band, like a now Tooth and Nail band. So they only have one record out, and it's on Tooth and Nail, Blurred Visions. And they have announced a new record that they've been working on for a while. And just this past week released the first single from that record called Evermind. And I absolutely love it. I don't listen to like a ton of like heavy music anymore. But they are a heavy band that I love and I'm into. And I think part of it is just the forward-facingness about their faith that they bring to it, that you just don't get a lot out of artists. But there's a lot of textures to their music, and I really, really, really like it. And so this new album, I feel like, is going to be a big one, a really big one. And so I'm excited for where it's going to take them, and really excited to be able to spend some time listening to it too. But Evermind by Idle Threat, I highly recommend you checking out. So it's cool. All right, let's play a game.
Let's play, it's time to play a game. Let's play, it's time to play a game.
yeah, so Joel, this week we are sitting down with Bryan Olesen from VOTA. And they recently had an album that came out that was titled, I've got to pull up, because for some reason I keep on wanting to change it to back to the beginning, but it's back to the start.
Back to the start, yeah.
So I got to make sure that I say the right thing so people don't pull up like, can't find this beginning album. So in honor of that one, I want to take a look back and play a game where I'm going to give you two bands, and you're going to tell me which one released their album first. So we're not going back when they started, because I feel like it's kind of, they might say, well, we started playing music in 1995 or whatever.
Right.
So what we're doing is when they released their first album, and this is Like whatever. So if it's independent, it's independent. So I'll let you know some of these bands did release stuff where it was independent, and then 4 years later they got picked up by a label or whatever.
Gotcha.
So I'm going to give you two bands, and you tell me which one released their first album first.
I feel pretty good about this, but we'll see how it goes.
I will say I'm glad that I'm on this side of the computer because some of these did surprise me.
Okay.
I don't have their album pulled up either, so I have the year here.
Okay.
So if you are wanting to dispute anything, we'll have to dive into that. Okay, first off, which one released their debut album first? Skillet or Casting Crowns?
Oh, man. So I remember when the first Skillet record came out, at least what I think is their first record on Forefront. Self-titled, had a skillet on the cover. That was probably 95, if I had to make a guess off the top of my head. Maybe we're celebrating 30 years of Skillet right now.
I was about to say I can confirm the year, but I was like, that's going to completely throw it off. If I say, I'll give you the 2 years, then you decide.
I'll be honest, Casting Crowns I don't know as much about, but let's just say Skillet.
You're right. Skillets was 1996.
So close.
So you're really close. Casting Crowns was 2001.
Yeah.
I feel like if you asked me who was the older band, I wouldn't have gotten that right.
Maybe because Skillet still sounds more youthful than Casting Crowns.
I think it might be that. It also might just be that, like, that's kind of crazy to think that Casting Crowns, like, released an album and then skyrocketed.
Yeah.
Like, usually, you know, it makes more sense with Skillet, where I was like, oh, that's weird to think that they were around for, you know, they had a following, but I feel like Comatose was when it really took off.
Right.
Because that was the Winter Jams and all that stuff.
Yeah.
All right, next up is MXPX or Jars of Clay.
This one's probably close. Definitely closer than the last one.
It's a year difference.
Yeah, I was about to say. So I was probably, I was probably early high school when I got my first MXPX record. You want to go MXPX?
You're right.
Yes.
1994 versus 1995 with Jars of Clay.
Yeah.
So you're doing pretty good so far.
All
with
right.
this.
All right.
Next up, we go Mercy Me versus our guest this week, VOTA.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Yeah.
Or when we talk about VOTA, are we going back to who VOTA was previously known as?
Yes,
Casting Pearls?
I counted them as Casting Pearls since it was the same band members.
Okay. Man. I'm still going to go Mercy Me, I think.
You got it, Mercy Me. 1995, which was another one that was kind of crazy that they were doing this stuff and then took off. And yeah, VOTA, it was 2000 as Casting Pearls when they released their first album.
Gotcha.
Next up is Switchfoot versus 1,000-Foot Crutch.
Switchfoot.
Just a wild throwing it out there. What do you think is the time difference between the two albums?
I don't know. I don't know.
So this one was the closest one on here.
Really?
Switchfoot released, I think it's like Legend of
Chen, yeah.
June 17th, 1997. 1,000-Foot Crutch released their debut album July 29th, 1997. So a little over a month, about 6 weeks or so.
All right. I'm still on top of this thing.
Yeah. House of Heroes or Hawk Nelson?
Oh, man. So I know there's a House of Heroes, I think, independent record. And I know Hawk Nelson's first record, Letters to the President, I think was their first record.
I'll give you a hint.
Okay.
Hug Nelson was not created in 1987. I didn't say it was a good hint. It was just a hint.
Thanks for that one. I wasn't imagining that they were. Man. House of Heroes?
You are correct. House of Heroes 2003 and Hawk Nelson's 2004.
Okay.
Next up, Starflare 59 versus Bleach.
Starflyer.
You're right again. 1994 and 1996.
Okay.
Yeah, you got this. No pressure.
How many do we have left?
2 more.
I don't want to blow it.
Need to Breathe versus Building 429.
Oh my goodness. See, this one's going to kill it for me. Good grief. Man, I don't really have a clue.
It's a year difference, if that helps
so
you at
that
all.
makes it worse. I'll say Need to Breathe.
Ooh, Building 429. Man. 2000 and Need to Breathe 2001. Which honestly, I feel like it's impressive that you made it this far. Because the first one got me when like Skillet. I was like, man, I would have guessed 2002 or something.
Well, I remember when it came out.
So our final one, 2 of the younger people that are taking over radio and youth groups. Josiah Queen versus Forrest Frank.
Okay, so when we talk about Forrest Frank, do we mean Forrest Frank as a solo artist or Forrest Frank as in he was in a project with another guy and they released some hit songs?
Let me pull up this one right here. It is...
I'm struggling to even remember the name of that right now, but...
So this was an independent one. It's saying with Bisquick. Is that what you're thinking of?
Well, it was a duo. They were releasing records together, and I can't remember what the artist's name was when they were together.
I think that might be the one you're talking about. So I'll go with that one. I went on Wikipedia, and it is under independent albums. So it is not his Child of God album that came out in 2024.
Yeah. No, I know. For the fun of it, I'll just go Josiah Queen.
Josiah Queen, his was 2020. Forrest Frank was 2018. But I mean, I don't know if we're going with the other one, the Bisquick one. If that's a duo, that's 2018. Effortless is 2020. So
Forrest Frank was in a band called Surfaces, and starting in 2017. Surfaces was the one that I was thinking about. They had, I don't remember the big song, but they had a pretty popular song.
okay, this does say that Frank launched his solo career under his name, and he released July 1 of that year. So so that would be considered 2018, his like first one.
Cool.
Do you also know how old Forrest Frank is?
30.
Yeah.
I'm seeing that right now.
I thought he was like 19.
That's funny.
I feel like that makes it more impressive that he's connected with the youth that much.
I mean, 30 is young.
I mean, yeah, it's young, but I feel like I'm 33, and I feel like if I walked into our youth group at our church, people wouldn't just turn around and go, "Hey, Brandon's here." Like, I'm not the Fonz walking in.
Maybe you are, Brandon. Maybe you are. Maybe you are. That's cool.
I'll show up tonight and I'll ask everyone. I'll stand at the door. Do you think I'm cool? You think that?
That's funny. That's funny. All right. Well, thanks for walking us through that. I feel like I did pretty good.
Yeah, I think that was really
slightly
impressive.
proud of myself. So let's transition and get into what we're talking about today. Well, today is an exciting one for us because we have a special guest with us today. You may know him as the lead singer of the band VOTA or his stint on The Voice. Join us today in welcoming Bryan Olesen. Bryan, we're pumped to have you
Yay.
on, man.
So great to be here, fellas. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is really exciting for us. Anytime that we're able to have a creator on with us, just to be able to talk through the history and the process. And so I'm excited to kind of dig into where you're at and all those kinds of things. So let's jump into it.
Yeah,
Let's do it.
It's definitely cool to have this. Before we started recording, we were talking about like bands that like meant a lot to y'all, like when you were growing up, and VOTA was one of those. I don't say that to make Bryan feel old or whatever, but
Oh boy. Do you remember what we used to be called before VOTA?
Casting Pearls.
Oh, you are a true fan.
I'm in that. Was it the Facebook? You get like the badge for like top fan or whatever.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Well done.
All right. So jumping into it. So Bryan, how did you first get into music? Like, do you remember the first album or song or anything that you heard that made you want to pick up a guitar or stand behind a microphone?
Oh yeah. Well, my mom had an insane album collection, and just even as a kid, when I was playing with toys like Matchbox cars and stuff, I would like drive them to the record player like I was going to a concert. And then I would just sift through these albums, and I can still remember the album covers are amazing. And somehow I stumbled upon a Queen album that had Bohemian Rhapsody on it. And this was like before like Wayne's World and stuff or whoever, I know those certain movies made those songs even more popular. But when I heard it for the first time off this album, and I just remember just being in awe of what I was hearing. And, so that definitely did something in me. And I remember going to a junior high variety show where this guy gets up there with electric guitar and someone else is on the drums, and they start playing into a Van Halen song. There's no singer. It's just full on rock and roll. And like grandparents are getting up and walking out, holding their ears because the thing is so loud. And I'm like, I am going to play guitar. It's decided. And that did something in me that like I had to have one. And sure enough, I got one for like my 14th birthday was my first guitar. And I was off and running. I loved Eddie Van Halen. I have a really good ear for music, but his playing was so incredible that because I couldn't copy it perfectly, I just started, wandering and writing my own stuff, even at that age. So the fact that I couldn't play guitar as well as Eddie turned me into more of a songwriter.
That's cool. How do you get from there, from being at the point where you're into music, you start trying to figure out how to do it, to actually like, I'm putting a band together and trying to like make this thing successful? Like, what was that bridge like?
Oof. Well, let me tell you the bridge I had to cross before that. So I'm from Connecticut originally, the Northeast, and I did not grow up in a Christian home. I got invited to youth group as a teenager, and this small Baptist church, basically rock and roll was sin. So I turned in all my tapes and CDs at the time, and figured that that's what God wanted, only like classical music and nothing with a drum beat. So there was this period of time where I went to Bible college in the middle of nowhere in Wisconsin, where you had to turn in your music there too. Like they had a committee that would either hold your music if it didn't get approved, or they would, they would give you back what did approve. And back then, even groups like a cappella, they would not get approved because they considered the voices too self-glorifying. Wow. So it was a really weird time as a young person, just going through like, what do I feel God really feels about this with music. Like, it was always in me. I would have my electric guitar with me at Bible college, but I had headphones on so no one could hear the distortion and stuff. My buddy and I, we, as we were writing songs, so that turned into moving to Nebraska because he worked out here in Lincoln and he invited me for a summer, and I came out just to kind of work on music with him. And we never played live. We just worked on stuff forever. But my first ever live band experience was this other band. It was called Helpless Speech was the name of the band. And they actually all lived in Scotts Bluff, Nebraska, which is like light years away from Lincoln. I mean, it's seriously like a 7-hour drive. And I joined this band, and I drove out 7 hours to Scotts Bluff to practice and be a part of our first gig. And that's kind of where things started. And I started to sing and songwrite. Then the lead singer at the time got a real job, and everybody was mad at him for getting a real job. And so Helpless Speech turned into Casting Pearls. At that point, I started writing more music.
Gotcha.
And all those guys moved to Lincoln, Nebraska. And we just did stuff on the weekends, just really tried to, make it happen as much as we can. And I think for me, my first big break, I guess, was I remember the first time like someone from Forefront Records heard our demo, and he called and left a voicemail, and I kept that voicemail for like a year just to give me inspiration and stuff, And then Newsboys at the time owned a record label, and they were interested in us, and so I started talking actually with Peter Furler, the lead singer at the time, which turned into me getting an offer to actually play guitar for Newsboys, which was insane. That was like the first stamp of like, okay, maybe it was worth it investing so much time and energy into music. Like it was fine. Some things were starting to pay off.
Yeah.
Did that answer your question? I know I kind of had a few bunny trails there.
Yeah, for
but
sure.
I had to throw the Christian part in where rock music was a sin. I don't know how many times I threw away my Van Halen CD and rebought it, and then felt guilty and threw it away, and then bought it again.
It's
at Bible college, I snuck out to go to a Petra show, and I snuck out to go to see Petra, and PFR was the opener, and I fell in love with that band, Pray for Rain. So that was my first time where I heard Christian music, where I was like, oh, this is really, really great. Like I dove in, secretly sinning and listening to rock and roll on my headphones.
Listening to PFR, yeah. It's It's so funny you mentioned that, because I feel like there's a whole conversation about Baptist church and secular music. I remember as a teenager, my student ministry doing a night where we all brought our secular CDs, and the whole night was just, how do we destroy them in the most fun way? So we were like burning them and breaking them with baseball bats and golf clubs. But I just remember like seeing my Gin Blossom CD get destroyed, and then like having heartbreak, and then even feeling way worse next week when I went and bought it again.
Dude, I thought I was the only one.
You're not the only one.
We made those artists rich.
I had a conversation with the guy that was my student pastor back then the other day, and he's like, why did we do that? And I'm like, you were in charge, bro. I don't know.
Well, hopefully, maybe every several years, every 5 years, we look back at who we were 5 years ago, and hopefully we see growth.
Yeah,
we see
right.
Like, why was I doing things that way? Why did I believe, I don't know. It's, and the older I get, it seems like the more questions I have, the less I know.
Yeah.
The less I'm sure of.
I think that's a really good and valid point too, because I think obviously growth is being more introspective and more thoughtful about things. And so it really is a cool thing. Like, there are a lot of things that I'm probably more sure about than ever from when I was younger today, but probably more things that I'm like, I think there's probably a lot more like room for grace in the midst of all of this than I thought there used to be. So, yeah.
So jumping ahead, you get on INO Records, release your self-titled album, and you create what to this day is one of my favorite music videos, and it's the video for Hard to Believe. Can you tell us a little bit about maybe the creative process of like coming up with the idea and like creating that video?
Yeah, sure. First off, I want to say the album cover was not photoshopped. There's a helicopter hovering above the three of us, and the blade of the helicopter is like captured perfectly in parallel to the building. And I remember the label at the time, because they didn't have, a lot of money for marketing, and I had this idea for a helicopter to come in. They're like, you know what, maybe your next album, when you sell a few records, we could do that. And was like, no, I'm going to check it out. And I called this guy. He goes, yeah, I can just come there and hover for 20 minutes and, give me $400 and we'll call it good. So he literally did that. The photographer
amazing.
grabbed a whole bunch of shots, and that ended up being the album cover, which was pretty awesome. And that was Jeremy Cowart, who's like since became, and he's an incredible photographer. But that music video, oh gosh, the guy's name is escaping me at the moment, but it was pretty groundbreaking at the time. It was kind of like that Apple sort of feel where, you had this element moving through. We each one of us filmed in front of like a green screen that we put together, and we filmed it in Franklin, Tennessee, and it was a lot of fun. I mean, just as a band to finally get to work on, I think that was our first music video at all. So that was pretty fun. That's all I can tell you about that.
I remember, I think we were mentioning this a few weeks ago, that they had this channel, the gospel music channel, and it was just Christian music 24/7, and they would have like the rock block and the hip hop or whatever. And I remember seeing it, I don't know if it was like one morning before, I think it might have been before school. Like I'm waiting for like my brother and my mom to get ready to leave. And so I turn it on and I see that video, and I was just like, man, I'm used to, like people singing in front, and maybe there's a story with like this, this guy and this girl or whatever. But I was just like, this is so cool. And so it's always stuck with me. I remember when we started our grade school ministry here, I showed that video to some of the kids here, and they're like, what? This laser's like, what's the laser doing? What's going to happen? I was like, the laser's not going to hurt anyone. That's not the point.
That's so funny. That's
what's so fun about music videos is like, especially during that time, the more it didn't make sense, the cooler it was. It's like, rando people in it and stuff. But I remember we were just like putting, Craigslist ads out to try to find cheerleaders and dancers that wanted to volunteer. So like all those people that came in were just like, who knows somebody, random stuff that we just threw out there and people just showed up. So it was definitely a grassroots effort.
That's
cool. Really cool.
Brandon, was that your first introduction to VOTA?
Yeah, that was, I saw that video, and I mean, back in that day, it's like, if you don't, I remember like, I think I didn't catch they would sometimes have the name and, song and all at the beginning and end, but sometimes they wouldn't have it in the end. So sometimes you just have to wait, because I mean, you can't Google like red laser and hard to believe cheerleaders. Like Google's gonna be like, what are you talking about? And but I remember like discovering them, and like next trip we took to like Lifeway or Family Christian or whatever, I went and I was like, oh, I've got to pick up this album. And so I picked it up, and I was like, man, this is really cool. And I feel like I connected pretty quickly with the band.
That's really awesome.
That's awesome. It would have been better if you were part of a Baptist church and you threw it away and you bought it again. And you threw it away.
I wish I had that story of, oh yeah, they had to throw in the VOTA.
Thankfully,
we would have made tens of more dollars because of just your sacrifice.
I think my school, they only knew the like top artist. And so I remember one day someone being like, you shouldn't listen to Toby Mac. That's like satanic. And I remember telling my friend, I was like, oh, no, you must have misheard me. His name's Toby Mac. You must be thinking of someone else.
That's so funny. I mean, granted, in my student ministry, it was, we got to keep our Christian rock CDs. It was just the secular stuff that we destroyed. Oh, that's funny. Bryan, tell us a little bit. You guys have kind of been known over time for just bringing awareness to different causes that are out there, things like human trafficking. Like, how did you guys decide, hey, we want to use this platform that we've been given to kind of invest in some of these different areas? What kind of led you guys towards that?
We've always had this mission that to use music to connect people that need help with people that can help. And we've tried various ways to do that, and usually link it to albums. And I think part of that honestly happened with me when I joined the Newsboys as their guitarist, they did a missions trip like in Mexico, and that was the first time I really saw extreme poverty, and I was
Yeah.
blown away. I was like, "Oh my goodness!" I mean, we were in a trash dump, and people were making makeshift housing out of the scraps there, and I was just I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was unlike anything I've seen before. But also I was looking at like, you know what? This band is making a difference just
Mm.
by doing a couple concerts here or whatever. It's
Mhm.
raising awareness, and that awareness and eventually the giving went a long way. And I kind of fell in love with that and adapted that. And I love creative marketing ideas and stuff too. And so a big part of it for me was to try to come up with unique, interesting campaigns that would engage our fans. And the one we did with Love Justice, they fight human trafficking globally. At the time, I went on a trip to Nepal, and there's like 14 border points between Nepal and India. And what was happening is traffickers were coming into Nepal posing as like employment agents to give jobs for their kids and stuff like that. And then what would happen is these kids would get sold to brothels and never seen again.
Mm.
And our mission was to, like, at the time when people were still buying albums, we recorded 2 albums and we said, hey, um, for let's see, what did I say? Oh, the album's free, but before you get it, you have to watch this video from this girl named Nina who escaped one of these brothels. She told her story, and it's heart wrenching and it's so
Mm.
inspiring. And we said, for a gift of any amount, we have another secret album that we recorded that's only going to go to the givers on whatever they choose to give. And we, at the time, we've never been a massive band. We've never been Casting Crowns or Mercy Me or whatever, Toby Mac. And I was working at a church doing worship full time, and so we weren't touring a ton. But through that campaign alone, our goal was to raise $150,000 to support and staff 5 border stations for 5 years, and we ended up raising like close to 180,000. It was amazing
Wow.
to see what God did through that. And then we got reports over the years, like I think it's been close to 700 or 800 girls have been intercepted just through the border stations that we helped put together. So
Mm.
sometimes it's just hard to even fathom what that means. But the fact that we got to be a part of something that spared hundreds of young children from a life of just utter destruction, like, it's good for you to remind me of that. It's like, yeah, we got to be a part of that. And so when you get to do that once, we've done it again. We partnered with another organization. We took on an entire community in Nicaragua. It had 300 some kids sponsored in this community, and it just was so cool. We, from start to finish, we just saw the hardest thing sometimes to do is to break the poverty mindset in these communities, and to
Yeah.
see that happen in real time was just so wonderful. So yeah, we've always we know that we can have a voice even if it's a smaller one compared to a lot of bands, but um, love trying to make a difference with some of that. So that Love Found Me album that someone mentioned was an album that we did for Love Justice, but they also helped us too. So we were able to own our copyrights, like record the album ourselves. So it's almost like we use some of these organizations as a label to help us, but then we were so free from the publishing and restrictions that we could do these creative things to help them. So it was a very win-win.
That's so fun, and probably like a little bit ahead of its time. I mean, obviously the music industry is a very different animal today than it was 15 years ago. But I would imagine that some of what you guys were doing then, like, we're going to do this thing kind of on our own, not on this label, but, doing it to support this cause that we really believe in, probably like mirrors a lot of what's happening in music today. And I feel like you guys were probably on the front edge of a lot of that, which is cool.
I'll take that. Sure. We were just trying to survive, We're also trying to survive and do what we do full time. Our strategy is we ended up owning a tour bus and sound and lighting, and we would hire ourselves out to bigger bands and run their tours. So we worked really, really hard to do, and we would open for their audience, So we would do
Oh,
like a
wow.
20-minute set, but we would be the crew loading all the gear in, tearing it down, driving the bus, and it was pretty insane.
Yeah. What were some of your, this is an off the topic question, but going along with that, what were some of your favorite, like, some of your favorite tours or artists that you were able to hang out with on the road that like just kind of impacted you?
Well, all right. I'm going to answer this in a few different parts. One of my favorite tours was my, my entrance into the Newsboys was pretty crazy. So I had been talking with Peter Furler for some time because he was the head of the record label that was looking to sign us.
Yeah.
And so, we call it the label dating game. Like you want things to move fast and they never do. They take like months to a year and let's hear more songs. This is great. What else you got? And you're like, and one day I get this call from Peter and he's like, pretty much he said something like, I was a worship pastor at the time. And he's like, he calls me on a Thursday. He goes, there's about 100 people I could call here in Nashville, but I'm wondering if you're interested in playing guitar for the Newsboys. And I remember taking the phone and just like kind of doing a silent scream because I was like, the answer was already yes, but I was freaking out that the offer was there.
Yeah.
And he's like, can you fly out tomorrow to see? At the time, Jody needed to step down for his daughter just needed like 24-hour care and he just couldn't tour. So there was no guarantee for me like how long this would be. And he's like, can you fly out tomorrow? And I'm like, I've got a show tomorrow with Casting Pearls at the time. And then I had to lead church on Sunday. He goes, well, the tour starts next Friday. So I'm like, bro, I've got a week. I've got a week here to make all this decision. And of course I did. And my very first show with the Newsboys in this tour bus in front of, 5,000-6,000 people. By the next Friday, I mean, I had to buy some CDs once I got the set list to like work out my singing parts and what I was doing. So that was pretty insane because I went from, slugging it out in a van to getting thrust right into a major band that at the time was chartering private jets and tour buses and massive shows. And it was like the best experience ever. And also like a way to let's see how a big band does it, to kind of see the behind the scenes. So I guess that's probably one of for my own band. We started this thing called the 180 tour. And what it did is we went into public high schools and we did like character-based assemblies. So one of our main speakers was this girl named Crystal Miller, and she was a survivor of Columbine. She was actually in the library where most of the violence took place, where most people were killed and injured. She was hiding under the only table where someone wasn't killed or injured because they were right above her loading their guns. So it's an amazing story. And we would go into these high schools and just do a character related type presentation. The band would play. We'd do like a dance competition with a student and a couple students and a teacher, just connect with the kids. And then we invite them out that night for an evening concert where we could be more free and share the gospel with them. And we did like over 400 of these all across the US. And I'm pretty proud of that because it was a lot of work. Sometimes we were doing 2 assemblies a day. So 2 different setups in 2 different schools and then setting up for an evening show. We were doing like 3 concerts a day. And, God really opened up a lot of doors. It was pretty exciting sometimes to come into a room with like 800 kids in there, and they were just from the high school that day. So to introduce God in that setting was exhilarating for me because like, oh, we aren't playing to the church choir here. This is really cool.
That's awesome. I love that.
Sorry if I'm giving you too long of answers for your questions. Just shut me down.
That's perfect.
It's so good, man. It's great stuff. So I know we mentioned at the top that a lot of people maybe have come across your music because of your time on The Voice. Like what led to that? How did all that come to be?
Oh, bro. Okay. First off, I went through the hardest season in my life when my marriage ended, and it was just really devastating and difficult for me. And I don't know what sparked. As I was coming out of that, my drummer sent me this like audition thing for the voice one day. And I remember telling him, I'm like, dude, I'm not going to some arena to sit outside in line with a bunch of teenage girls for 14 hours waiting for a chance audition on a singing show. Like it wasn't like it just wasn't on my radar. One, I was kind of, you know, I wasn't just starting out. I've been doing this a long time. So he said, "No, you don't have to do that. You can schedule like a Zoom call with them." And so without telling him, I scheduled this Zoom thing for like a Thursday at 1 p.m. And their instructions were you need to have 90 seconds of a song that you're going to sing. And that's it. They're going to cut you off at 90 seconds. You don't see them. I almost couldn't get the laptop to work. I almost like, what am I doing? I almost just didn't do it. And I sent the song. I was in my bathroom playing guitar. It was nice and echoey. Sang the song, and like 2 hours later, I got a response back. This is great. Now we want you to send us 3 more songs this way. And then they wanted to do a hour-long interview and a psych exam and all this. And it kept escalating to the point where like, oh, they're sending me out to LA. Here we go. And so it wasn't something I was looking for at all, but it turned out to be one of the most amazing experiences of my life. It was incredible.
That's really cool. And what was the song that you used for that first audition?
So they give you a list of approved songs. Like I can't remember, it might have been 1,000 or 2,000 songs, and you're supposed to pick, I think, 15 of them and put them in order of preference. And so they chose one of the songs I had on my list was One Republic's "Love Runs Out."
Yeah.
And so they choose it, and they give you a 90-second clip of how they kind of think you should do it. And I had a different idea for that, and I went into the studio and kind of recorded what I wanted to do. Is that I think it would be cool if we start this off a cappella, and then the band comes in, and once they heard the recording, they were like, "Okay, we'll let you do that." So that worked out really well for me. But that's how that worked.
That's awesome.
And then beyond that, the way the show goes, you don't really. I had to sing a lot of songs I'd never sung before, never would have sung even in karaoke. Like I wish I could have picked all the songs that I really wanted to do, ones that I knew well, but it gets pretty intense. There's a lot of decision making and how they pick songs and what gets approved and stuff like that. So, but it was just a super fun, wild ride. And then my daughter gets on the show. I don't know if you guys know that. So that was like, that's never even happened in the history of the show, to have like a parent child, where they're both contestants and both become finalists. I was like, God surprised me in ways that I just never saw coming. It was really, really special time for me, and affirming to me too, in a time that I needed it, that spending my life pursuing music was kind of the right choice. And I need to continue to do that until I no longer can. It's kind of what I felt during that whole season.
Is it more nerve-wracking when you are on stage or when you are off stage watching like your daughter perform?
Oh, they're both incredibly nerve-wracking. And obviously there's hidden cameras catching my responses all the time, but which I'm sure my daughters kept rolling her eyes like, oh, there's dad crying again. And but I have to tell you, like, my daughter really didn't believe she had a gift. She sings in an 80s cover band. And she told me, it's like, I just couldn't find a singer that was like me, so I didn't know if I was really good, is kind of what she said. So to see her kind of blossom during that show, I mean, I was just, and come out of her shell, and just, I was just overjoyed. I was so cool. It was so awesome that I got to be at every one of her performances. And so that's a memory, that I'll cherish forever.
I love that.
So recently, y'all released a new album, Back to the Start. What can listeners expect from that?
Well, I'll set it up as to why it's called Back to the Start. There's a lot of things. One, my kids would say, "Dad, we really love like your very first album, that the one with the car on it, the white one that was Casting Pearls and named VOTA," and they're like, more music like that would be great. And as I pondered why I think that album resonated with them, is it was done before record labels and radio and trying to do it for a living. It was like, just make the music that you really want to make. And not like we didn't do that after that, but this album was really just, my bandmate and I were like, you know what, let's make something we're proud of. And if anybody else comes along for the ride, great. But
Mm-hmm.
we just have to go back to the start and do it for that reason, not thinking about is a radio station or whoever gonna care or pick this song up. And
Mm.
so, and I think that's how we should always approach art,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe I lost my way a little bit, but I also felt like I also worked for certain entities that I had to be careful. I didn't realize it, but you work at a church and you're a worship pastor. I have to, if this song is going to go out, can I have a line in the song that says where I'm talking to God and I feel like your silence is violent? Can I say a
Mm-hmm.
line like that, even though
Mhm.
that's what I feel in the moment? And so I'm in a more of a position now that I want to be more authentic.
Mhm.
Going through, especially my divorce, um, I've really felt my life was over and I lost everything that I
Mm.
worked toward my entire life. That's the actual just spirit and feeling I felt, and to see, I knew, but at the same time I knew God was real,
Mm-hmm.
even though I was upset at him during that season. He was patient and walked with me through it, and um, so I feel like my faith is more real and grounded than ever.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also trying to figure out, who am I really? What
Yeah.
um and so all that's coming out in the album. There's songs about letting go, trying to move on from that relationship. There's love songs about finding love again. There's everything in between. And so that's why I'm most proud of it, is it
Mm-hmm.
just feels like we did it the right way, meaning make the best thing we can that we just love first.
I think that's so fun, and it is a cool thing. I was in a band years ago, of little consequence, but it is so cool to think back on like kind of the stages that a band or an artist goes through, and how they do kind of like mirror our lives in a lot of unique ways, because your art is going to be a picture of what you're walking through at whatever period of time. And so it's kind of it's a cool take to be able to kind of look back and, obviously be stepping into a new stage as you are, but also find like a lot of similarity, with things that have kind of stuck with you for a long time. So I think that's neat.
I think too that's just we've discussed on here before that I think for me my favorite albums are the ones that you have to kind of work through, like, okay, what are they saying here? Or like, I'm a big believer in
Mm.
like, back in the day whenever I'd go buy that physical CD, it was I want the lyrics to it and I want to sit down and I want to like look at the lyrics. And like I love those albums where it's like people are working through stuff. It's not just you listen through it one time and you've got it. It's stuff that you can listen to. There's albums that I feel like I've listened to probably for 15, 20 years, and I'll go through and I'll be like, I've never stopped and listened to this song, but now it's like really impacting me for what I'm walking through right
Yeah.
now and all. So to me, that's it. I always love whenever a band's like, yeah, we're getting back to where it was, or we're like looking through this or whatever. I was like, oh, there we go. He's got to go.
That's cool.
Which I guess now
Agreed.
instead of looking
And
at the
there's some,
booklet, it's googling lyrics. So it's
yeah, and it's less. It's nice when there's mystery behind it.
hmm
Yeah.
When the intended meaning or what I meant, maybe I'm guarding for a reason, and
hmm
someone else is going to pull their own meaning out of it.
Right.
And the not every song like has a happy ending.
hmm
Like so I'm definitely all for that.
That's awesome. You've been able to have such cool, experiences, throughout the course of your career, from like your time and experience with the Newsboys, which I'm sure gave you like interface with all different kinds of artists, especially in the Christian world. And then you've got this whole The Voice thing, which puts you in a whole other sphere of music with like all those different things. What if you could think of like one artist that you would be able to collaborate with, or do something with? Um, who would you say, man, if I could just create something with this artist, like that would be a dream of mine?
Well, since you're saying artist, there's certain songwriters that I would love to get with, but one that fits both, I guess, would be Ryan Tedder from One Republic,
Mm.
because just an absolute amazing songwriter. He's behind some massive hits. Um, and I think our vocal styles are similar, so it would just be fun to kind of like write stuff, with him. So that's an easy one to say.
That's fun.
Awesome. And to close up, we've talked a lot about the impact that that VOTA has had. When you step back, 10, 20, I don't know, like 30 years from now or whatever, what legacy do you want VOTA to leave behind?
Um, that we were authentic, that people would remember us as good people doing the right thing, making great music. Like I feel like in our art, we want to reach as many people as possible, right? We would love the world to be following our art and supporting us in that way. And maybe that's still an opportunity for us, but you have to enjoy, as they say, enjoy the ride, enjoy the journey. And over the years, we've had so many situations where people that a song has meant something so special in their life, or even I remember we did a show that took us forever to get to, and I was so tired. And because we hung out with this girl at the merch table after the show, she was contemplating suicide that night. She wrote us a 5-page letter of how that of how just those moments kind of gave her the strength to carry on in that day. So like, and I know there's some stories like that we don't even know. So um there's an old movie that Robin Williams was in, Dead Poet Society or whatever, and it
Yeah.
was he was reading a poem about like the life is this poem, and we get to contribute a verse to it or something like that. I'm just paraphrasing it, but that's
Yeah.
what I feel in some small way. The art and what we've done as a band in VOTA, whether it's helping fight human trafficking, to someone just being encouraged and happy in a day with a song, to anything in between, doing these high school assemblies, all of that has had some sort of impact and mattered to somebody. So you sum that up in 5 words. I can't do that, but that's just just to kind of keep doing that and know that we impacted culture for the better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That would be a great way to end it.
That's awesome. It's such a beautiful picture. And I think, I mean, obviously, I think the same just through my life, right? That we always hope and pray that that we end our lives with the people around us a little better off because we're able to be in their lives, to have that kind of positive impact rather than a negative one. And when you think about that from a musical standpoint, the reach goes so far and creates such
Yeah.
an incredible opportunity just to have beautiful impact in the lives of people, as I know that you guys have already. And I'm sure that there's going to be even more great opportunities to be able to see that happen in the future. So that's cool.
And sometimes, you're a pastor, it's the small things. Like, I don't know how many times I've sung at my church for a funeral, and those aren't exciting gigs. Let's just be
No.
honest. But they're impactful and they're meaningful to that family in that moment. And they asked me to be a part of it for whatever reason. The person that passed on was a fan of my voice or whatever. And those things, that's how we serve. That's how we wash feet, in the
Yeah.
kingdom, is to just use this gift that God gave us to help impact just even the individuals in those moments, not always the bigger dreams that we have. So
Yeah. That's great. Man, this has been such a good conversation. It's so fun. It's like you hear music from a band and you get one like image or picture. And it's so fun for us. One of my favorite things about being able to do this podcast is just to be able to sit down with artists and really get the heart that's going on behind what's being created. And I just think you've like put your heart on display so much in our conversation today, and I'm grateful for it and to be able to see it. And I just appreciate you being real and vulnerable in a lot of different ways. And I think that I'm hoping that even that is just an encouragement to people maybe that listen to this that are walking through hard situations or difficult things in their life, to know that there is hope on the other side, and that God is faithful, and He's going to continue to be there, even when we're not sure and we don't have it all figured out, and we're wondering how or why the things in our life happen. I know for me, man, I've been encouraged by your words today, and so really, I appreciate you taking some time to hang out with us.
Oh, absolutely. Those are good words, friend. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah. Well, we are super thankful again to be able to have you on, and man, looking forward to be able to maybe have some future conversations as well. So thanks for hanging out with us today.
You got it, gents. Have a good one. Thank you.
All right. Well, that was a fun conversation that we were able to have with Bryan Olesen. Let's get into what is our lyric of the week.
It's time for the lyric of the
All right. So the lyric of the week this week, since we're not covering an album, comes from a Starflyer 59 song, who is a namesake for our podcast. Hey, Are You Listening? We get that from a Starflyer 59 song called Hey, Are You Listening? And this song, the lyric for this song comes from one of my favorite Starflyer songs, Fell in Love at 22. And this came out as an EP before the album. I think Fashion Focus came out. I heard the song on the Fell in Love at 22 EP. And simple lyrics, but it's this. Fell in love at 22 with a girl that's close to you. Find a job and find a life. No more long days, longer nights. With your girl and family too, playing card games in the room. This is our life, our old times. There's a lot of songs out there about 22. This is one. Some random artist named Taylor Swift has one. And there's a Switchfoot 22 song. So yeah, I don't know what it is, but I feel like my 22 was like a big year for me. A lot happened. I actually met my wife that year of my life, and so this song just connects with me in a lot of different ways. I love it. Yeah. Cool. Well, we're really grateful for you guys for joining us today for this conversation. As always, encourage you, go find us on the internet, Facebook. Hey, Are You Listening? You can email us. We'd love your questions or comments, discussion topics. Email us at heyareyoullisteningpod@gmail.com, and we'll look forward to seeing you back next week.
Hey, are you listening? This ain't no quiet thing. We're screaming.